I'm Kenneth Kinney, and thank you for joining us on another episode of An Education That Works, where every week Victory University brings to you the profiles of leaders in our community who've gone on to achieve phenomenal success after earning a college degree. We help you show how to make an education that works. You know, the books and magazines in our own library have a lot of history, but the way that literature and media has been delivered to us has changed dramatically due to the advent of digital technology. No better guest can explain to us how that's impacted his business and how he's gone on, after getting a history degree, to go on to running one of the largest media companies in the community. Kenneth Neill is the publisher and editor of Contemporary Media. They publish the Memphis Magazine, the Memphis Flyer, Memphis Parent, and Memphis Business Quarterly, as well as the Memphis College Guide. He's a Yale graduate, a history major, a former teacher, and now an extremely successful business person who's gone on to transform a lot of the media efforts for contemporary media. So join Victory University as we bring you Ken Neill on An Education That Works. All right, well, thank you. I'm here today again for another episode of An Education That Works. I'm here with Kenneth Neill, who is the publisher and editor of Contemporary Media. You guys are in charge of Memphis Magazine, Memphis Flyer,
yes,
Memphis Parent, and Memphis
right.
Business Quarterly. And then you do a lot of other media services in the market.
We do a lot of custom publishing, as they used to call it. Some in print, some online services, search engine optimization, that kind of thing. So we are the largest locally owned media company in Memphis.
Outstanding.
Today. Which doesn't mean we're big, it just means most of the TV, radio stations, and daily newspaper are owned by big guys.
I appreciate you coming, being a part of An Education That Works. You know, Victory University shows leaders like you in the community and what their secrets were after they earned their college degree. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your experience, you know, where you went to college and where you got from there to here.
Well, I probably would prefer to start at high school.
Sure.
I grew up in the city of Boston, right alongside the Charles River, and went to a Catholic high school where the Christian Brothers of Ireland instilled a great love of education in me. Back in the day that I went, they, of course, sometimes instilled it physically.
Absolutely.
But I had a great fundamental education from the brothers and was lucky, consider myself lucky to then have gone on to Yale University in New Haven. And I graduated with a BA in history, and a long time ago, we won't say when. Also then went to Ireland and got a master's at Trinity College Dublin, and then taught high school in Ireland for a good few years, for most of the 1970s, and moved to Memphis in 1977. My mother of my children and wife she was from Memphis, and we moved here. Largely, I took a leave of absence from my school teaching job, and because my mother-in-law was considered to have a very serious illness, she lasted 37 more years. So I think it was a trick to get me to Memphis.
Sure.
So I've been here ever since. So.
Well, taking a history degree, what made you think you would become the head of a media company?
Well, nothing whatsoever.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to grow up in a time, honestly, when there was a sense of an expanding economy, and we really didn't worry too much like kids have to do today about how they're going to make a career in one place or another. But I will say that taking a liberal arts education sometimes gets a bad name these days, but can often be, I always told my own children, I have 3 grown daughters, I often tell them that life as you grow up is a little bit like you walk into a room when you graduate from high school. You walk into a room, and the room has a lot of doors. It's a big, imagine a big semicircle, room where you have maybe 10 or 15 doors. And as you go along in life, you can only go through one.
Mm-hmm.
But I always have told them that make sure that when you open that door to the next room, you're going into a room with a lot of doors too.
Absolutely.
And rather, don't go open the door and then find yourself in a room with 2 doors, particularly if you're 21 or 2 years old. Keep as many options open for as long as you can, because you never know what will turn up. And in my case, I was a high school teacher, as I said, and moved to Memphis. Was actually working on a textbook project when I first moved here. But I sent a letter to the editor of Memphis magazine saying, I've done a little bit of writing, I've written a few books, a few newspaper articles as a teacher, but I'd like to work for Memphis magazine. Memphis magazine was then 2 or 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, sorry, we don't have any positions available now, but we'll keep you in mind, blah, blah, blah. In fact, the letter is sitting right over there. I'll show it to you before we go.
Absolutely.
I have it framed. But I met him at a party about 6 months later, and he said, oh, you're the guy that was in Ireland. Well, gosh, blah, 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 blah. One thing led to another, and I met somebody on staff, and he said, why don't you do a freelance story? I did a freelance story on a little company that was just getting started called Federal Express.
Little bitty company.
I remember the covers. It was a cover story in August of 1978, and it was called Fred Smith's $1 Million Dream Machine.
Oh, wow.
Back when it was only worth millions, not
Right,
billions.
right.
So anyway, they liked what I did, and before I knew it, I had a staff job. And here I am today.
Good careers are based on the foundation of a good education. To have a career today, a successful career, you've got to have a college degree. Higher education is that gateway that takes you from training, preparation, to vocation. So an English degree can give you passage into a number of vocations. If you are going into editing, almost all editors have English degrees. If you're going to be a writer, whether it be technical writing, which is a vital part of the corporate world, or creative writing, you're going to have an English degree. The foundation of an English degree can also prep you for things like law school and to be a lawyer. More and more corporations, even tech companies, are looking for people with English degrees because that degree instills a level of critical thinking and analysis that jobs, companies, businesses value. So the importance of faith and learning going into any career is a vital marriage for the believer. C.S. Lewis says that the world doesn't need more Christian ministers. It needs more Christian doctors, Christian lawyers, Christian businessmen. To be a Christian means to engage the world through whatever vocation God has called you to. You are no less in ministry for being an athlete or a writer or a clerk. If you are a Christian, all areas of life, all jobs are ministries. Colleges are ideal places for not just education or getting a degree, obviously they're for that, but also for networking, for building these sort of synergistic relationships that you will build your career upon, that you will carry with you throughout your life. My college experience was incredibly enriched by my relationships, relationships with my professors, relationships with people in my respective degree, people who I still communicate with, people who have helped me along the way pursuing my own career goals.
Well, a lot of the people that watch this show, they're going through career changes. There's a big chunk of the economy that's having to retool and relook at their own careers. And you bring up a good point about liberal arts education often getting knocked. But when you look back on the things that helped propel you, obviously there's a lot of experience, but what in your education? Was there any specific skill or anything you learned that really just, when you look back on it, goes, you know, that's what helped me get to where I am?
I think I was very lucky with my teachers. I think one of the most critical things is finding good teachers. And as I said, it's not something you can research.
Absolutely.
But if you're lucky enough to have I had very inspirational teachers at every level, from the 4th grade to high school, through high school, into college. And I always felt blessed in that regard. So I would say one thing to do is to seek out, don't shy away from a class. Don't go into a class because it has a reputation for being easy.
Mm-hmm.
And don't shy away from a teacher who may sort of, the first time you go to class and before you drop it, you say, I'm not going to do that. He's going to be, you know,
Right.
He's going to be making a lot of trouble for
Sure.
me, a lot more work. Go for the challenge. I would say go for the challenge and you'd be amazed. And also, having been a teacher at, you know, at a high school level, teachers really pay attention to people who are really enthusiastic, and you know, it's not the old, you know, give the apple to the teacher thing, but,
Right.
but it is, if you demonstrate enthusiasm, there's nothing a teacher likes to see more than
Sure.
someone that
Enthusiastic.
feeling like they have
Absolutely.
lit a spark in that person's
Right.
soul.
Well, you know, you've been through several different schools where Christianity was part of that mix.
Mhm.
How did a Christian education influence you?
I would say I would not say that I'm particularly religious, but I would say I'm spiritual.
Absolutely.
And I've given a commencement address at my own old high school. And one thing I always stressed is we had a little shield, the Catholic Memorial High School was the name of the school. And on the shield was a Latin phrase, Vince in bono malum, which means conquer evil by doing good. And I think throughout my whole career and personal and professional life, that motto has been more than just 4 empty words to me.
Mhm.
And I think if you go into life using that mantra,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of good things will happen to you. I've been very blessed, and I feel like, you know, in my own career here particularly, you know, we're lucky in that the ownership group, there are 6 of us who own the company. It's all, as I often say to people, nobody running this company is trying to support a 3 BMW lifestyle
Right.
of running this company. Everybody's committed to the community, committed to doing the best possible work, committed, you know, our mission statement says we want to, first of all, inform, enlighten, and entertain the people of the Mid-South. Our second mission statement is to provide professional, financial, and personal fulfillment for all of our employees.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is, and make money for our stockholders.
Mhm.
And we
Absolutely.
always say in that order, if we do 1 and 2 properly, number 3 may happen.
Works itself out.
Well, what kind of like got me in I guess the field for college was that most of my family never even got past high school. So I thought, you know, maybe, you know, this would, you know, look good for the family, or maybe I can, you know, be something besides someone who works with their hands all their lives. So I just immersed myself in academics, you know, and I just started studying in the library. I just did these things on my own. Community college was just the start for me, but after that I said, you know, there's more out there, so I wanted to know what else could I get besides an associate's degree, and also I had a career goal in mind. So I was, at first I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, which I'd had to have a doctorate in order to do it, so I knew my next step was naturally a 4-year college. So my next step was going to a 4-year college where I had a scholarship. Well, my ultimate goal is to go to medical school. I can't do that without a bachelor's degree, and the bachelor's degree is just the natural next step in order to go to any medical school, or I can't even take the MCAT without that basic knowledge that comes from a degree.
One thing I think your industry has had to evolve out of necessity as much or more than any other. We see it with online education, where you see it with bookstores, with books changing and evolving into a Kindle.
Yes, indeed.
How do you kind of position yourself as a media company today? Because I think a lot of students are going through, a lot of people are going through the same position in their own careers. It's where they were and trying to embrace a new technology environment. So what kind of advice can you give to those kind of people?
I think it's be careful of jumping to too many conclusions, because, and I'm mixing my metaphors here, it's sort of like catching a falling knife, because
Right.
things are changing so quickly that you have to be agile, you have to be nimble, and this is where the value of what the so-called liberal arts education, if you familiarize yourself with history and culture and how the world got to be the way it is, you can pick up a lot of information that you can apply to day-to-day life, and particularly for searching for a career. In our business, we have gone through a revolution and a recession at the same time. I mean, if you're in the car business, you went through a big-time recession, but people still drove basically the same cars when it was over. But our whole transformation since the year 2000, our company bears very little resemblance to what it did then. Our whole dynamic of how we work, for example, the Memphis Flyer 10, 15 years ago was a print product that came out every week. Well, now we have a dynamic website, memphisflyer.com, that it's a daily newspaper. We have 20, 30 page, and now, so, and the whole mantra that print is dead has been fascinating, because at one point that seemed to be that we would move to a world where there were no newspapers and magazines. Well, a funny thing is happening. I don't know if you've noticed, but you can go pick up a copy of Vanity Fair magazine, and it's that thick. If you want to pick up one of the fashion magazines, I believe Vogue just set its all-time record in September this month for the largest single magazine, I think, that's ever been published, like 906 pages. Like, that's a good thing to drop on a fly if he's in your way.
Well, and you see so many more local stories now. People still want to read content that's relevant.
And that's why we've had many opportunities to acquire things in other cities, but because of our mission statement, we have always focused on working in Memphis. And we like to think, yes, we have competitors, but when we come to our 4 key products, there's no one quite doing what either of them do. There's no other equivalent to Memphis Flyer. There's really no equivalent to Memphis Magazine, which is now almost 38 years old.
Amazing.
And one of the strengths of our company is continuity. That we have been pretty much, we had one ownership change in the mid-'80s, but it was more of a tweak of the existing group than just wholesale change. And so we have this continuity that goes back. So I'm very proud of what we've done. And I think to your viewers, I would say, try to go back to that keeping doors open thing. Try to do things that you will learn something from the specific job, whether it's an internship, whether it's a summer job, doing something, and then make sure that when you go to the next room, there's plenty of other new opportunities.
Absolutely.
And you never stop being educated. I'm 65 years old in a couple of days, and I'm still learning. I got a lot to learn.
Sure.
So I hope the Lord gives me enough time to get a little bit.
Well, to be an officer, you need a degree. And I've wanted to go in the Air Force for a few years now. I mean, as an officer, you have to have a degree, so that's why I wanted to come and get a degree. And Victory was the school that offered me a better opportunity to get my degree. Like, the honors program here helped me out a lot, because after my first year, I really didn't know where I could go. And the honors program here helped me out figuring out that this is where I want to be. And my friends and everything here, the professors, I love it here. And my fallback, if I don't ever follow through and go into the Air Force, is I'd like to go into social work. And criminal justice and psychology kind of go together when you're talking social work, because I love helping out people that don't really know what they're trying to do with themselves, and to help disadvantaged youth, like, you're stuck on probation all the time, but to help them get their life back on the right track. And because it's not really criminal justice, like, I want to be a police officer, but I want to help people get to where they want to be in either psychology or criminal justice. Either degree could really help me with that.
Well, I'm gonna focus on one of your magazines,
Okay.
Memphis Business Quarterly.
Yep.
So if I am a 21, 22-year-old student who just graduated,
Right.
or I am a 40-plus-year-old student who feels like they need to go back to school to improve their career,
Mm-hmm.
so many people today are doing that. How do I get, this is a roundabout question, how do I get inside as a spotlight of Memphis Business Quarterly? What kind of things, what kind of advice can you give me? So I'm one of those people that's displayed for all the fantastic things I'm doing at FedEx or AutoZone, and I'm joking getting to that, but what are the success secrets that you've seen? You've hired and employed a lot of people. What are some of those common factors?
Some have gone on to great things.
Yeah, and what are those kind of common success factors you've seen in your own employees?
Initiative. If that trumps all kinds of other things. We have had people who have started with us who, this is an oversight, could barely read and write.
Mhm.
Say a journalist, somebody whose writing was plain awful.
Mm-hmm.
But they would stick to it. They would keep their eyes open. They would learn. I mean, they would work at it. They would take, for example, they would be willing to do anything. I think employers really value employees in every area who take the initiative,
Mhm.
it's like anything else. It's sort of like the school thing. If you're the student in class and you're the one who is willing to ask lots of questions, eager to do the extra stuff, go off and learn another aspect of the task at hand. And I've always believed, and to some extent in my own life, that success really isn't about being really good at any one thing. Although that's certainly, if you're Steve Jobs and you're good at that, you
Mhm.
do okay.
Mm-hmm.
But for most of us, I think the real challenge is to be good and solid at a lot of different things, and that certainly makes you more employable. If you really develop a well-rounded persona and have the right attitude towards what your task is, doors will open for you.
Sure. Well, I'm going to ask you this question: what, if you had the influence on the schools, whether it be at the grade school level or at a college, obviously the communication skills, the ability to write and communicate effectively, affects you and your business and your industry as much as it does any other. What kind of advice can you give to colleges and to schools in general to help their students write and communicate better?
I would say don't abandon. There's a tendency today, especially in the world of Twitter and that and Facebook to communicate very quickly and short bursts of information, but don't lose sight of the fact that an awful lot of whether you're going to be a lawyer, whether you're going to be a doctor, whether you're going to be, a AutoZone store manager, so much of communication is about developing a narrative. If your boss at AutoZone, if you're a manager of an AutoZone store, and he comes to you and says, I want to report on how the Christmas season is doing, that's an invaluable skill to be able to do a 2-page report logically, coherently, so that your boss can see how your store is doing. You'd be amazed. So I would think don't settle for just instant communication. Develop the communication skills, well-rounded, particularly learning how to do a narrative, and which involves a lot of logic. Because A, then B, then because of B, C. You can't just get away with throwing a whole bunch of ideas up on the wall.
And seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
Right.
You can in some areas, but I keep coming back to the same thing. Your chances of success are better when you have a wide range of abilities to do different things.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I think the magazines and the media that the contemporary media produces has been a true asset to the community. It reaches all parts of the city and beyond. So I appreciate your time, and thank you again.
I really appreciate talking
Absolutely.
with you. It's been fun.
Thank you again for joining us today. If you or anyone else you know is looking to get a degree in history, in criminal justice, or in business in order to change your life or to change our world or just improve your career, then I urge you today to go to aneducationthatworks.com. On behalf of Victory University, thank you for an education that works.
I believe that education is the key to anything. So while I would be able to give back with nothing at all, I feel that a degree opens more doors and many more opportunities for me to help those that need help. I want to give back to those that helped me get to this point. With this criminal justice degree, I can pursue a field of law enforcement, FBI, CIA, just anything that would help me make the world a better place.
Join us this and every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. on Local 24 as leaders in our community discuss the secrets to education and career success. Victory University presents An Education That Works.